another blood-red sunset and yet another moon face, and still another 100 miles to my next resting place. Driving down the road, eyes on the horizon. Within my car, I'm all alone, but feeling good and feeling strong, knowing that this path I'm on brings me to myself. I'm driving.
Hello and welcome to Spirit Sherpa, the show that helps and encourages you on your journey to unlock your magic mojo. I'm Jules, your co-host. If you're new to this type of work, please start with episode 1. If you're an intermediate student, you can start with episode 98. And advanced students, go ahead and fast forward to episode 200. With me as always to share her insights and her wisdom and party like it's the end of the year, because this airs on New Year's Eve, is the spirit doctor herself, Kelly Sparta.
Why do I feel like I'm coming into a WWE?
Your last name is Sparta. Just saying.
Baby. It is, and I would take them. You know.
We watched that movie, the 300, with like the Sparta dudes, and I'm like, yeah, that was nice. They whooped some ass in that movie. That's all I got to say.
Oh yeah, I watched the behind the scenes on that and how many hours they had to train every single day to look like that. I didn't do that. I was like, okay, no, thank you. There's a reason I did not go into acting. Yes.
Yeah, but that was some nice eye candy. I ain't gonna lie. I was like, Merry Christmas to me.
But for me, it just means everybody looks at me and goes, I am Sparta. You know?
Yes. Yes.
Everyone. I mean, fucking everyone. Yeah.
And that's self-inflicted.
Oh, and it so is. It so is because, that I took this name. That's where I was. And it's still fine. So
absolutely. So what are you doing partying in down in Panama for New Year's? What y'all got going?
I haven't signed up for it yet, which means I may or may not make it. We record these in advance. So it's actually the 14th of December as we're recording this. But there's always a New Year's Eve party that the Rotary Club throws. And they often, dress in costumes and things like that. And so, they do this, high fashion sort of thing. And so last year I was doing psychic readings for it. But this year they're holding it in a different venue and it is way too loud to even remotely consider doing psychic readings. So I'll probably just go and dance my butt off. I love to dance.
Wait, oh yeah, me too. Me too. That was way
fun.
I
know you do. You are like the queen of dance, man. You have like awards and shit.
Yeah. Well, I've been dancing since I was 3. Did jazz, tap, hip hop.
Don't give us the justification for the award. Tell us about your awards. Toot your horn, baby.
Oh, I will. Toot. So no, I've been a competitive dancer most of my life. So I did jazz, tap, and hip hop, competed with those. One different little things, depending on, that was way back when. So honestly, I don't remember what it was. And then in adult life, I do West Coast swing and hustle, and a little bit of social ballroom, waltz, cha-cha, stuff like that. And so I'm intermediate dancer in West Coast swing and, won a few awards there and did a few routines in hustle with my hustle dancing with my pro and won a few first place on that one. So that was way fun. Yeah.
She's rocking. She's rolling. She's cooking with gas, baby.
Absolutely. I was 95 pounds dripping wet and he would throw me up in the air and stuff. So that was way fun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. The things that we do behind the scenes here is that I watch TikToks that I find that are dancers and then I send them to Jewel on Voxer and I'm like, look at this. And she's like, oh my God, I love them. And I'm like, of course you know them.
Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Jordan and Tatiana. I got it. Yeah. Oh, that's Jen DeLuca. Yeah, I know them. He's a great leader. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is what we do in our behind the scenes days. That nobody else knows about. This is our little secret thing.
Well, they do now.
They do now because, I can't keep my mouth shut. We know that. I have zero sense of privacy for myself, and I'm very good about privacy for clients, but yeah, something like this, nobody cares.
Absolutely.
So,
Well, look, we're gonna be partying on tonight and today with this episode, because this is going to be a really cool and awesome episode, because we have Josh Radewan. There you go.
Padawan like
And
Padawan.
Radewan like Padawan, and then we have Cassie Polzin with us.
Oh, so we're excited to have these guys here. So if you haven't been in the Awaken Abundance course or in any of the Ascend Elevate classes that we've been doing for spiritual practitioners, then you haven't run into them yet. But Josh is actually in my spiritual coach certification program, and he is actually certified as a energy scanner, and he's actually the one who's listed on the website for doing energy scans right now. So if you didn't notice, there are energy scans available on the website for $97 with Josh, and he rocks, guys. He's really good, or else I would not have put him up there because I'm a picky ass bitch, and you know it. So Josh is up there and he does that. And he's also getting certified to teach my Welcome to the Woo program. And so he has been on his spiritual journey since 2017, when he had a rude awakening that he will talk about, I'm sure, and really just changed his whole freaking life. And so he's going to tell us some of his story as we talk about the addictions and spiritual awakening topic today. And Cassie, his lovely fiance, she has been doing this work for over 20 years. And she's studied like so much stuff, this massive world of spirituality and metaphysics and the whole shebang, right? And so she's got a huge amount of stuff in her toolbox. And so the two of them together are going to have this conversation with us that I'm super excited to have, because it's something that I don't see a lot of people talk about. And I think needs to be talked about more. And in fact, I think it is something that is missing from both the spiritual world and from the 12-step world. I think that there is a need to cross-pollinate those two because they each inform the other, right? So I'm super excited. Welcome, guys. Give us a little bit about your story and about how you see the spiritual awakening and addiction side go together.
Yeah, so I'm really grateful to be here. It's always just a pleasure being around you, and now Jules, like I said earlier, putting the face to the voice. It's really good to be here. So, like you said, 2017, a rude awakening. That's interesting. I didn't ever think of it like that, but it was a rude spiritual awakening. I was floating through life for a long time. I grew up in Wisconsin. Come from family of drinkers. It's Wisconsin. We are the heaviest drinking state in the world. I'm pretty sure the people of Ireland settled Wisconsin, or vice versa. I'm really not sure how that works exactly. But I traveled around quite a bit in my youth and worked with construction crews, and I just really fell into the pattern, the pattern of heavy drinking, drug use. And I didn't have any connection to my spirit at all. I grew up, and being sensitive to energy from a very early age, being in churches, it just didn't feel right to me. Like I didn't fit in. I didn't fit in with the mold. So once I got old enough, I didn't continue to do any work on my spirit for a long time. And that's really what the addiction piece was for me. It was a spirit sickness. It was something I was trying to use to fill that hole. I just didn't know that. I often, chastised people in organized religion for phoning in their experience by, just listening to the preacher talk. But the truth is, I listened to George Carlin, resonated with what he says. I was like, I'm good for this life. I'm just going to, tear some shit up and get moving on. So
George Carlin,
in 27,
he's one of my favorites.
Oh, mine too. Yeah.
So, in 2017, after years of heavy stimulant use, everything started, there was too many cracks in the foundation, and I became an open channel for a lot of dark energy coming through. And, most people talk about their spiritual awake process as, having connection to the divine, experiencing oneness. I didn't experience that at all. I saw demons. I was getting fed on. I was, I just didn't know what was going on, because every construct my mind had ever built was now shattered. And I had nothing, I had done zero inner or personal work the entirety of my life. And it was like I was facing all of my inner demons with the outer demons. It was brutal, no other word for it. It was just a very brutal awakening. And I ended up going to prison for a couple of years into 2020. And I'd like to tell you the great hero's journey. Like, I got out and all was well in the world, but I went right back to doing the same shit. I started doing inner work in jail. And, it was 3 words that actually started me deeper into the path. And it was, a letter my aunt sent me while I was in there. And the 3 words were, God is love. And I finally had found a God that I could get behind. There's just the simple fact that God is love. Any other teachings I've had, and they were very limited at the time, mostly to, fear-based, denominations in which, I went to. But, there was those 3 words that made me start to open up my heart, start to open up my mind to something greater. Like, I knew there were more things in the world now, but I was like, I come out of it and I didn't know, is that psychosis or spiritual awakening? Like every doctor, they diagnosed me with schizophrenia. They put me on a litany of medications. And when I would tell them what I was experiencing, they just, said that's schizophrenia. But I knew in my being the whole time that what I experienced was very real. But they didn't see it that way. And, I do believe that there are cases where medication is necessary, but I don't think my particular one was one. So in 2020, I got out and I had relapsed, 3 days outside of prison. I was in a halfway house, relapsed right back to doing the same exact thing. And it got worse, like these dark nights of the soul come, and it just got worse. And I'm just like warrioring through this shit. It's like a phoenix being returned to the fire with amnesia of the lesson it just learned over and over and over and over and over again. I couldn't stop. I tried everything, and that was the hardest part about it this time is I was trying and I just could not put it together. And that's when Metatron showed up. And like I said, I was still very much, and to find an angel come through after, really being a sacrilegious prick most of my life, to have Metatron come through and in the form of sacred geometry and Metatron's cube. And, from there, Michael, the Archangel Michael started showing up, and then Archangel Raphael. And I was still, going through it, but I was putting longer pieces of sobriety together. It was good. It was good. It was good to get to the other side of it, but I was still like, what do I do? Like, I have all these things I've experienced and I have no door to knock on. So during that time, at the same time, shamanism kept coming up, the message of shamanism kept coming up, and it led me to one of Kelly's podcasts. So I opened it up, I listened to it, and I had the courage to call her. And, we had a good talk that day. I talked for about a half hour. And like any great mystery school, at the end of the call, she denied me entry into the program because I was unsafe for it. I was still, cycling through active addiction. And I have to say, this is the first person in the spiritual community that wasn't willing to take my money right away. So, and she gave me with some really good things to work on. And I came back 5 months later, knocked on that door again, and she let me in. And now we've been working together for about 3 years. And my life has changed irrevocably. I went from 3 years ago, literally at this time, being in the absolute fetal position in life, crying out for something to change. And through the inner work that she has provided, it's brought me to a place where I'm doing public speakings. I own a metaphysical store. I'm a published author, all of these things, and taking the spiritual coach certification. But it was the addiction that led to the awakening. It was, I don't know. It's just been an interesting ride, to say the least.
I was floored, to be honest, when you came back 5 months later, because based on where you were, I expected a year or two. And when you showed up 5 months later, I was like, I don't know, you're going to have to prove it to me that you're ready. and you totally did. And I was so impressed. And so, this has just been, this is the thing, is that we can have a weakness for, whatever it is that's going on, where we're trying to plug our pain with whatever this pleasure-seeking thing is. But when we set our mind to it, and we set our spirit to it, and we commit to it, despite any fallbacks or, things that happen, and, falling down and getting back up again, you get there. And, that was the thing, looking at you from the outside, if I could point at one thing that was super, that was super impactful for you, it was your willingness to stick with it no matter what. And that you just committed to the path, right? You committed to the path, and you were transparent and willing to ask for help and doing the whole thing. And that, when you will commit to the path more than you commit to beating yourself up, that's when you win, right? That's when you actually get somewhere. So, and that's what I've watched you do. It's been amazing to watch.
And that shame piece that you're talking about is the hardest part for addicts, right? Especially addicts trying to get out of that cycle, right? It's like, we want to get out. And every time we relapse, even though our heart wants something so much different, that sabotage, cycle, it's a repeat, like I said about the Phoenix. That's what it feels like. It's just like you're burning over and over again, and you just can't comprehend. And then you're in this cycle of guilt because you're getting chewed on by things you don't necessarily think of. It's not just you. It's, for me, it was lifetimes of trauma. It wasn't just this life. It's stuff I brought into me, and then family line stuff. It's been learning about all of it, and life had its fair share of traumas on the way up too. So it's been a fun life. I mean, I'm excited to be in this seat today.
So what made the difference where you were able to commit and actually latch onto it this time?
Truthfully, I believe, it was fear that led me to Kelly's doorstep. It was absolutely fear. I knew I couldn't go on any farther, and I really didn't know how many more of these battles I had left in me. The things that I went through. I don't know what everybody else's experience was, but I will tell you the amount of inner violence and outer violence that I experienced, during that path. I'm not ready to go yet. And I know I've always had this huge heart, and that was why I think it was harder for me, because I always had this huge heart, and, being very empathic, the drugs, the alcohol, it really triggered a lot of narcissistic tendencies, but I had this moral compass the whole time that just was at constant odds with the way I was and who I truly am in my nature. And eventually it just, I didn't want it anymore. I didn't want it for a long time. I just didn't know how to stop. So, but it's that shame and guilt repeat cycle is really, I think, the crux of the addict. Instant gratification, shame and guilt is what keeps us in that loop.
Yeah. And what you have to recognize is that the shame and the guilt is actually a resistance to change. It's the way that we keep ourselves from changing. The more time you spend in judging yourself, the less time you have to actually do anything about it. So the more you beat yourself up, the more you are stuck in your resistance. So the path out of resistance in that is to stop beating yourself up and just get back on the path, right? To recognize that the self-abuse is nothing more than resistance. That it doesn't serve a purpose. We think that if we beat ourselves up hard enough, that we'll be better next time. That's not true. The more you beat yourself up, the weaker you become. And so it does not make you stronger. It actually makes you weaker. So the key is to stop beating yourself up and start finding ways to support yourself. Because that's how you build your willpower. That's how you build your strength, your inner fortitude, is by reinforcing the good things about yourself, reinforcing the things that you can do, not the things that you can't do, right? Yeah. It's what you focus on expands.
A big part of it is, like you're saying, reaching out for help, right? I think a lot of addicts, especially, in regards to stimulant use, like cocaine and methamphetamines, there is such a paranoia that comes with the extended use of it over long periods of time that, like during my awakening, I thought the whole fucking world was after me, right? Like I thought the whole world wanted me to burn. And literally that's what it felt like and what was going on inside my mind over and over again. And, so to reach out, was like, it was the biggest thing I did for myself in this path, and to say, I need help. And it's tough. It's tough when the brain has been wired for fear for so long to trust, right? Our the traumas we suffer, all the experiences we have in life, trust, it's all about trust, and that there's good people out there that really do care and want to help, and that aren't out to get you. And that was the big one for me. And that's why I reached out to Kelly when I did.
Yeah. And it happens with alcoholism too. My mother was super paranoid, and she was an active alcoholic my whole life. So, the paranoia is a function of the trauma as well. So, most people in these spaces have trauma. So, the trauma is the underlying piece, and then it gets activated and built onto by the damage done to the brain by the different addictive substances, right? So, Cassie, we haven't heard from you yet. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about addiction and spiritual awakening?
So I wanted to say thank you. This is a big step for me. I have not shared my story publicly. He's had a few go-arounds at this point. This is my first time really sharing my story. So I'm grateful to be able to do it with you. What an honor to be doing it with you. This is really huge. So thank you. So my experience was a lot different than his. I didn't really have an awakening. I feel that I've been on my spiritual journey literally my whole life. As a child, I felt misunderstood. I experienced a lot of things as a child that caused me to question my reality. And so I always was the sponge looking for answers. And I find it a blessing at this point in my life that I was raised by a self-proclaimed atheist. She didn't believe in anything, which gave me an open canvas to build from. So I didn't have, any of the indoctrination or anything that made me afraid of any particular religion or spiritual path because I wasn't raised that way. So I was just constantly curious. And when I was younger, I remember being outside a lot. I loved being outside. I've always been really connected to nature, making the little mud pies and things like that. And I remember talking to spirits or fairies or whatever. I don't really remember particularly what I was speaking to or who I was speaking to, but I remember having these conversations. As I got older and became a teenager, I was a troubled child who became a very, very troubled teenager. I was very angry, and I had a lot of unresolved trauma, and I really didn't know how to handle my emotions. And I ended up falling into alcoholism when I went to college. When I went to college, very honestly, I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to go to college to be free. And so my freedom was found in drinking. And my first drinking experience was at a college party where, they're downing, cans of beer. And this was my first experience. And I thought this was normal, right? My very first time drinking, I blacked out. And that was pretty normal for me for the following 10 years of my life. This is in the midst of becoming a mother and trying to work in the real world and become an adult. And, I knew pretty early on in my alcoholism that I had an issue, but I didn't know how to deal with it. I went to counseling. I ended up getting in trouble with the government. I spent some time in jail. And I just wasn't really able to get it together. During this time, all along the way, I was always questioning things, and I was always deep diving and researching and learning all these different things. I had taken a class when I was in college, world religions, and that really opened my mind to all kinds of different things. And so when I was in my later 20s, I started practicing witchcraft because I was like, this really seems really exciting and I'm really interested. Now, mind you, I'm still drinking very heavily during this time. I do not recommend this to anybody. But I started practicing witchcraft. I got into tarot and, I started doing spell work and things like this. And it got really interesting. I don't even know how else to describe it. Like my life just got really interesting. It was very chaotic, very messy, very dark. I got myself into some situations where literally I should have died with my drinking because it was so serious, but I'm still here. So I know somebody was there with me during the times when, I almost crashed into a semi one time. It was some pretty scary stuff that I got myself into. So anyways, I got to a point 4.5 years ago now. I got to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I knew that the home that I had created for myself and my environment and the people that I was interacting with, like none of it was working for me anymore. And I knew that I needed to change something. So I ended up leaving home and I took a tent and I went out and I started camping. I had about $1,000 in my pocket and I went camping. And I started connecting to nature again. And I struggled a little bit while I was camping, but I had made the decision this is the only way I am going to get better is if I start focusing on myself. So things got really interesting once I left home and I started focusing on myself. About a month after camping, I was blessed with an amazing opportunity to move into my own apartment. This was my first time ever actually being able to build life for myself. When I stepped foot into that apartment, I said, I'm never bringing alcohol into this apartment. And I never brought alcohol into the apartment. And so it's been 4.5 years. And my life became so magical.
We need to celebrate that. Yes. Dude, that's awesome.
It is. And I would never have it any other way, though, because I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't had those experiences. So I'm grateful for all of it. In any case, I thought I had it all figured out. Things really started happening for me. Just all these blessings were coming my way. And I really started opening up to, wow, there is more out there. I am being so blessed right now. And I was just so amazed by life. I was in this magical space for like 1.5 years where I was like, everything's working. I am on the top of the world. And then I realized that it's not just sobriety that fixes things. So, I spent another 1.5 years in that time period really unraveling myself and all these things that I had been burying for years drinking. And reading, journaling. Tarot is the thing. I tell everybody tarot is the thing that brought me home to myself. Once I got sober and started using tarot, it really did different things for me. It helped me to unravel my patterns and my behaviors and understanding, how I can change things to do things differently and create better outcomes for myself. And it really brought me home to myself. So yeah, it's been a journey for the last couple of years. It's been even more interesting learning how to interact in the space of I'm really strong in my sobriety now, but now it's like learning all the other pieces of myself along the way that create the whole of me. So yeah, it's been a really cool journey. And then this one crossed my path. So it's been a huge blessing.
Thank you for sharing that story. The thing that the thing that I've had long conversations with my husband, who's also, multi years in recovery. I think it's 15 now. We've had long conversation about the challenges with 12 steps and the benefits of 12 step and, the importance of those first 5 steps, getting to the point where you're willing to do the moral inventory, because that's where you're actually willing to actually start your spiritual work. Right. And at the same time, there's a lot about those steps that doesn't leave a lot of room for self-love. And so it can be a quite brutal process sometimes for some people. And so, this is one of the things that Josh and I have talked about this too, right? Where it's like, okay, so how do you come out of those narcissistic tendencies to put yourself above everybody else and nobody else's needs matter and I'm going to do what I'm going to do and it doesn't freaking matter and blah, 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 blah. You have to break out of that cycle. And so you can't come in with, self-love because self-love doesn't make sense in that state. When you're in that state, you're not about self-love, you're about self-appeasement, right? And that's a very different thing. It's like, how do I get myself to shut up, right? How do I get my pain to shut up, right? Yeah. So it's not about self-love, it's about shut the fuck up, right? And getting my head to stop yelling at me. And so, that there's a lot there that has to be looked at. And so Josh and I had long conversation before the spiritual coach certification happened. By the way, guys, Josh is responsible for the spiritual coach certification. He tracked me down and said, I want to teach this. You have to let me teach this. And we went through multiple different iterations of that. But months he dogged me and said, you must let me teach this. And so if you're out there thinking you might want to be part of it, you can thank him for that, because it would not have existed without him. So, but when we started talking about that, was one of the things we discussed was the possibility of taking it into other areas, into perhaps the prison system or into the 12-step programs and things like that. So, this is the personal growth is great, but if it doesn't come with transformation, then it doesn't stick, right? If you only change what you do and what you say, but not who you believe yourself to be, then eventually your discipline to do those things will break down and you will go back to who you had been. You have to actually change who you believe yourself to be and step into a new version of yourself, a new identity, because that's where change sticks. And that, I think, both of you in your stories, I see that. I see the change in the identity, right? It's this is not who I want to be. This is who I want to be. And I'm going to live into this beingness, right? And that is the power step in that moment, is to just declare that and to commit to it fully. It's the commitment piece, right? We forget, or we go back, or it gets hard, or me. I know how to be this other person. I don't know how to be this new person, know how to be the old me. And that was comfortable. It's like, yeah, but the comfort was not so comfortable, right? It was my comfort zone, but it sucked, right? It's like, yes, it's my comfort zone, but it's not comfortable, right? So these are the things that I think are so important. And the beautiful thing, having watched the two of you go through this, is that the two of you have come together in this beautifully meshed space, bringing your independent gifts together and making something that's bigger than the two of you individually. The synergy is really quite wonderful to watch. And so you guys are actually doing a program of your own called Healing Through the Chakras, using the energy of the archangels. Is that right?
Yes. We are so excited about this. I am very excited about it. I think you should start by telling the story about how it came.
Well, I have a wise teacher who happens to be on this very podcast who told me to be wary of burnout. So I burned myself out in August, and I decided, okay, I'm going to take a couple of days at the water park with the kids and just relax. So I'm sitting there in front of Poseidon's Rage and in a wave pool, watching everybody get blown around. I'm like, not today. I'm just relaxing, taking some sun. And then this download comes through about, this class, like the angels want me to write a class and in regards to the chakras and working with the energy of the archangels. And I said, absolutely not. I was like, I'm here because I'm burned out. I'm functioning at 20% battery and have been for the better part of a month. I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it.
You told him no.
I did. Anyway, we wrote the class. So 3 weeks go by and I was like, you guys aren't getting off this one, are you? So we started writing the class. And Cassie really put a lot of work into really putting a beautiful workbook together with this. And I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about that part.
So it was really funny because at first when this came to him, I really thought this was more his project, right? And I just was kind of just observing it for what it was. And I started getting messages like he needs more, because he just wanted to channel. And I was like, this is a really big class and people are going to need information and things to read and they're going to want to know more. Like, I know how I would be if I was taking this class and I know what I would want. And then I'm hearing this constant message. I'm like, I'm going to have to help him, right? And he was a little resistant at first, but we worked that out. But then this has been such a beautiful process working through this class, because as we've been writing it, we're also taking it ourselves. So we've been doing journeys to meet these angels, because I personally haven't had a huge experience with the angels. It wasn't until a couple years that I started working with Michael on a small amount, but this class has really opened up my perception. And I love shamanic journey, and I love that process. So incorporating that with meeting with the angels has been really beneficial for both of us. We've really connected a lot of key points in that way. So yeah, putting together this class has just been a really beautiful process. I've really enjoyed it. And I've been reading this book by Anna Dia Judith, I believe is how you pronounce it. It's called Eastern Mind, Western Body, and it is an absolutely phenomenal book. And I've been using this book as kind of a guideline for getting myself more acquainted with the chakras, and also to write this workbook and put this together. And it's really been helping to just unlock these deeper understandings of the chakras and how they work and how they interact with each other. And then, understanding how we interact with people and how our chakras being imbalanced cause these things. It's been a beautiful journey for me personally, just being able to be a part of writing this class. And I'm so excited to start sharing it with people too. In fact, we've already started a little bit. So it's been really cool. I'm so excited.
Well, and when you have something like this that comes through you, Spirit doesn't give you an option. It'll let you hit the pause button, but it doesn't let you go no. You can say no, but it goes, I'm Henry VIII, I am, Henry VIII, I am, right? For those of you who know the ghost movie, right? Yeah. So, Spirit just does that shit, right? And Josh, you've got the knowledge from learning all the stuff around the chakras in the energy scan program as well, getting certified to do that. And so there's all of that, which I'm sure, I haven't talked to you about it, but I'm sure it's probably informing it. But so tell people what they get out of taking the program. What is the end result? Why do they want to do this?
For me personally, when I was in a space where I would have wanted this class, and I still do for the record, but it allows you to get to know yourself deeper. That is the biggest thing that you're taking away from this. You are understanding how your energetic, physical, and spiritual body works. And you're also getting an understanding of how to tap into the ethereal. A lot of us don't know how to do that, especially when we're kind of like fishing around for information everywhere. I know I was for a long time. Learning how to connect to the ethereal with a direct connection, and specifically the archangels, which is, to me, it's a palatable expression of the divine, right? Like a lot of people have heard of the archangels. That's an interesting concept, and it's really accessible to everyone. So being able to build that connection to the divine, and also being able to build a connection to the self, which helps you to just become a better person, more understanding of yourself and other people and relationships and community and all of these things.
Yeah, Jules and I are laughing because this was part of a topic of conversation that we had in the Woo You program recently about the recognizing when you've actually connected into the ethereal, and not like being like, I don't know how to get there. It's like, well, you've been there like 15 times, It's like, then she's like, really? And this was part of the conversation, Yeah.
My analytical brain kicks in and go, step 1, step 2. Step 3. No, it's supposed to be the same steps every time. And it just doesn't work that way. I'm like, ego, stop it. Go bake cookies, Oh.
Yeah, it's like that. So, I'm super excited for this program for you guys. I can't wait to see what the results are. I will say, if you're out there going, well, they're just learning it, why are they teaching it? Let me just explain something to you. When Spirit hands you something like this, they hand it to you and you have to go through it first. That's how it happens. When Kathy was running Lumen's Gate, the Lumen's Gate crew, and this happens when we do our transformational events as well. When we create an event, we create it having never done it before, but we download it and structure it, and there's pieces and parts. But when you're doing that, then Spirit goes, okay, great, we're going to do this. Great, you first, and you're put through that, whether you're actually walking through the ritual itself. You're not actually walking through the ritual, but you were walking through the ritual, right? I mean, the Spirit gives you different experiences that take you through the ritual that you've just designed for everyone else, so that you have the knowledge and understanding of how it works in order to be able to facilitate it appropriately. So when I hear people talking about stuff like this in this way, I'm like, oh, yeah, there you go. That's going to be transformative. I recognize that process right there. I've done that for many years. That's exactly how that works, right? And so, this is one of those things that you have to recognize, that when things come through like this is exactly how they happen. And, your life can get turned upside down and backwards and forwards and get a little wonky and weird in ways that you didn't expect. And then you go, oh, that's what this is about. Okay, I know how to do this because I'm writing the program. Go figure, right? But you still got to walk through it, right? Because you got to have an understanding of what the experience that other people are going to have is going to be like. And so, oftentimes our experience is a lot more intense than our students' experiences. Our students have much smoother experiences than we do.
I've been feeling that with this. I've been feeling like that is exactly the case. So it's funny because it's just been for me, a process of just surrendering and stepping into the flow. And it's interesting because we're on this riverside recording thing, and we're actually sitting right next to a river where we're recording at. So it's just so relevant.
You gotta love it when it lines up. So. Yeah. Awesome. Well, so we're going to include the link in the show notes, but go ahead and tell people where they can find the link for your program. Do you have a quick link for them, or are we just going to put it in the show notes?
I do not believe I currently have that.
That's fine. We will just put it in the show notes. And if you guys can't, you don't see show notes on your podcast player and you want to know more about the program, you can reach out to Joshua at kellysparta.com. And then he will give you all the details that you need on that. Okay. And to be clear, this is not a program I'm running. This is a program they're running. So this is not part of the Kelly Sparta space, the Sacred Power and Purpose Mystery School. It is not part of that. But, I know these two, and I know that they're going to be great at what they do. So I'm excited to see how it goes. So, okay. So with that said, the two of you are in the Spirit Sherpa Facebook group, right? If you're not, you should be, right? Cassie's looking at me going, I don't know. Josh is like, of course I am. Yes. So if they aren't now, they will be by the time we finish this episode and before you hear it. And that's another place that you can find them, is in the Spirit Sherpa Facebook group. And so it's Spirit Sherpa by Kelly Sparta in Facebook. And you guys are welcome to come and join it. Most of the people that we have on as guests are in that group. And so it's a great way to reach out and get more information. It's also a great way to connect with me and ask questions. I do answer questions in the group. So, just post what you need to know, and I'm happy to share it. It's also a great way to say, hey, I want this episode or that episode. Can you do something on this topic or that topic? So come out and join the Spirit Sherpa by Kelly Sparta Facebook group, and don't forget to sign up for the mailing list, because that's where you hear about these things, because their program is going to be coming out on the newsletter as well, because I love to support my spiritual coach students. So that's a great way to learn about new things as well. So join the mailing list. It's on the homepage at kellysparta.com, or you can be on the mailing list by downloading the Boundaries for Empaths program. We love that Boundaries for Empaths program. So you can just sign up for that.
It's free.
It's free. That's right. All right. I think that's what we've got. So wrap up for the day would be, if you really want to change your life, change who you believe yourself to be.
There you have it. All right. Y'all be safe out there with partying for New Year's Eve. And that is all that we have time for this week and for this year, folks. So tune in next time, which will be next year, when Kelly has another chapter into your guide to energy, magic, and the spirit world. I'm Jules, here with Josh and Cassie and Kelly, and you have been listening to Spirit Sherpa. So long, y'all. See you next year.
Bye. Happy New Year.
Bye. Thank you.
Driving down the road, eyes on the horizon. Within my car, I'm all alone, but feeling good and feeling strong, knowing that this path I'm on brings me to myself. I'm driving